what you said is there's now a transition. Those who just wanted to be a checklist people, wanted to get certified, they're moving toward, hey, let's make our vehicle really, really secure. Welcome back, everybody. Today, once again, we have Gilad, our well-known guest and a very frequent guest. Gilad, welcome back to Matrickz podcast, the Autonomous Vehicle Safety and Security podcast.
Hi there, nice to be here again, and looking forward for this talk.
So just to let you know, Gilad will be here more often. We're planning a kind of like a series with Gilad. And just to introduce Gilad one more time to you, there are three things you should definitely know about Gilad. First of all, Gilad did his first hacking at the age of 14. That really gives me goosebumps every time I talk to Gilad. So he is, hacker from his DNA when you hack something at the age of 14. The second thing is he was and still as a reservist a colonel in the Israeli military. So that's another thing that you should know about Gilad. And finally, he is a fan of skiing, as you can see from his background. So these are the three things you should definitely know about Gilad. So Gilad, without further ado, I will get into today's topic. Today's topic is about ISO 21434, best practice and the lessons we have learned from our experiences so far. It's a newly released, newly published standard. Not too many people have too much of experience with that. But within this couple of years, we have gathered some experiences, and this is what Gilad is going to share with you today. Specifically, Gilad is going to highlight clause 8, clause 10, and clause 15. So I want to start with clause 8, the vulnerability aspect of it. So Gilad, off you go.
Okay, so it's important to state that this standard has been here for a few years. It is in the process of being implemented, and we've gained some experience. Not everyone is up to it. OEMs are already supposed to go through regulation certification for new vehicle types, for all vehicles actually, as of July this year. So this is actually now a must. One more thing, which is to note, there are two approaches to this thing. One of them are, I just want to pass regulation, I just want to be certified, I will do the minimum as a checkbox. The alternative is we understand and realize the risks, and we try to do our best to get the best and the most secure vehicle. So in implementation, we see that there is a move from those that are just going to have a check mark and say, we've done, to those which realize the real threats and the fact that we need to have a real good solution, not just something which passes regulation. Furthermore, we see that the audit, and we expect it to be more and more rigorous and severe. That means that right now, more or less, you need to have a pulse to pass the regulation. So if you have a process in place, that's good enough. Next, you will be required to show that you actually implement the process. Next, in a few years, you'll be required to prove that the process that you have implemented issues effective and efficient controls and means. And next phase, which will be in a few years afterwards, you will be required to show that the controls and risk mitigation and risk reduction means are actually implemented in an effective and efficient fashion. So in a combination of pressure from the regulation bodies, together with understanding of the threats and the fact that we want to prevent them, this leads to more and more serious approach to cybersecurity. So we can look at the standard, and it's a long standard. So I propose that, as you said, let's look at 2 or 3 clauses as much time as we have, so we can.
Gilad, I want to reflect a little bit of what you said here. You mentioned an amazing point that there are companies who want to have the check boxes, right, and they want to get certified. They're the minimalistic ones, and there are those who really want to make it secure. And what you said is there's now a transition from those who just wanted to be a mere checklist people wanted to get certified. They're moving toward, hey, let's make our vehicle really, really secure. Now, my question to you is, why do you think that's happening? And we're going to get to this this 8, 10, and 15 in a while. Just I want to hear shortly thought. Why is this shift happening?
But we see that as you implement the standard, you could have done, and many still use old tools, manual tools like Word and Excel, which yield a very low efficiency. It takes forever. You cannot reuse the information from project to project. You cannot prioritize in a good fashion, and you are spending huge amount of money trying to get the minimum thing. Now, having said that, many companies are moving to automation. So they are using automation tool for performing TARA, for performing vulnerability management, threat intelligence, and so on. And once they fuse this information, they can get a much better result, which goes into a return on investment model and a left shift. So this drives people to understand that implementing cybersecurity, which is a must, if you do it in a proper fashion, first of all, you save money. We can show models of return on investment. For example, if you take a requirement or specification and you just implement it, and then sometime along the way you look at cybersecurity and you find the flaw there, it is very expensive to redo the work. But if you take the requirements and analyze them day zero through the TARA, and you generate the means, the risk minimization, the controls which are associated by performing AI and generative algorithm on top of those requirements, then you hand the R&D not only the requirements, the functional requirements, but also the cybersecurity requirements. So in this sense, you get something which is more secure just by the fact that you do it earlier and you do it better and you do it in a more organized and effective fashion. And since it is prioritized, it comes up much cheaper and much earlier in the process. So it's not necessary because the understanding of the real threats, but for pure necessity to do it and to do it in an effective and efficient fashion. So the outcome of all this process is having better and safer vehicles for the benefit of all.
Got it. Fantastic. This is an amazing remark. So let's talk about clause 8, straight away, clause 8 vulnerability.
Okay, so clause 8 speaks about continual cybersecurity activities. We speak about monitoring and event evaluation and analysis and vulnerability management. So this means that you need to conduct a continual, by the way, in English, there is a difference between continuous and continual, and the term used here is continual, which means in going steps up, cybersecurity process. You should start this from the beginning with R&D. So once we spoke about something which is called SDLC, Software Development Lifecycle. Now we speak about SSDLC, which means Secure Software Development Lifecycle. We spoke about DevOps. Now we speak about DevSecOps. That means that from the beginning, when you start the process, all the way the development, you need to include the cybersecurity aspect in your development. Now, this doesn't end here. It goes to production. So once you have a vehicle on the road, you might find a vulnerability which wasn't known during development. So now you need to analyze this vulnerability, and you need to do it in a smart fashion. And let me relate to this. If you take the vulnerability, which is, let's say, from an open source, so you have a CV, and the CV has a CVSS score, and according to the score, you prioritize. Then you are working in the dark. How do you do it in a more effective and efficient fashion? You should do it in context. When I relate to context, I relate, for example, the ECU. Is this a connected ECU? If it's a connected ECU, then vulnerabilities need to be addressed, even they are not critical, because you're on the attack surface. If this ECU is a non-safety related ECU, then maybe you don't need to address all of them. If this ECU is behind two gateways, then it is well protected by two gateways. So this way you can prioritize your vulnerabilities and do the vulnerability management in context, and not only by the risk, by the score, but you do something which is risk-based vulnerability management. On top of it, you can add, for example, threat intelligence. So you might have vulnerabilities which you analyze in context, but let's add now the threat intelligence aspect. You might have a library or a package which is discussed very much on the dark web. This means that hackers are interested in this thing. If you are using it, you should better protect it, upgrade, change, replace, whatever. Last thing that we can speak about, there are many other things, but we're out of time, so I will shorten. Regarding vulnerability management, has to do with prioritization in the financial perspective. So let's say you have 10 vulnerabilities. If you just prioritize them according to the context of the vehicle topology, the ECU functionality, threat intelligence, that you did some work, and that's excellent. But you can also add the financial aspect. That means how much does it cost to fix this vulnerability? So if you have a certain amount of money, you might consider which vulnerabilities within this limited budget would generate the best security. So you might be off fixing 5 cheaper vulnerabilities than 1 expensive, and then you are better off with better security. On the commercial side, we can relate to the fleet. So let's say you have, again, limited budget. Would you fix it on a sport car or passenger cars? Obviously, it would go to the sports car because it's a prestigious model. Would you do it on a heavy-duty commercial vehicle or passenger vehicle? Definitely on the heavy-duty, because it can cause more damage. If you have 10,000 car fleet or 100,000 car fleet, you will do it on the 100,000 car fleet, because then you have much better mass security. So this is just a few thoughts which are not in the standards. This is from life experience, from understanding how things work, and our 10 cents of intelligence here.
And can you that's amazing. Can you also touch a little bit the, what you said, vulnerability? With that comes penetration testing, which is clause 10 and 15. So can you talk a little bit about those?
Yeah, so let's speak a bit about penetration testing. First of all, my apologies to all penetration testing companies, but in my view, if you find something during penetration testing, this is an escape bug, because it shouldn't have gotten to that point. You should have fixed it ahead of time. But because we are in an approach of defense in depth and multi-layer security, this is, let's say, a last defense line before the vehicle is on the road. When the vehicle is on the road, you might have an IDS or IDPS in the vehicle, which extends more protection, but it's already on the road. So the penetration test is your last line before production. So again, let's look at it from the context perspective. If you find a vulnerability in penetration testing, obviously it has an exploit because you were able to do something, then you need to ask yourself what to do. If you just start fixing them, it doesn't make sense. You need to run a Tara on top of those penetration test results and understand what is the impact, what is the meaning, is it really something which endangers the vehicle? If it happens on a air conditioning ECU, which is behind two gateways, I don't really care. It can stay there. Let's say you found a vulnerability on a Linux kernel, Linux driver floppy disk, and it's a critical vulnerability. You can take over the whole vehicle. But let me rest you assured, neither me, nor you, nor anyone else is driving a vehicle with a floppy disk. So you might find something which is high severity, very high risk in theory, but in practice, when you analyze it in light of the whole context and the whole vehicle, you understand that it doesn't worth even mentioning. So prioritization and optimization.
Here, I have a question here, Gilad. Yeah. Is it not possible someone exploits that floppy disk driver vulnerability to get into something else in the vehicle?
Assuming you don't have a floppy disk, you don't activate this thing, so you don't reach it. There is no way to make it happen. So you have a vulnerability on a code of a piece of code which is never used. So you cannot exploit this vulnerability. Yes, it's there, but you don't care because this code is never executed and there is no way to execute. Let's assume for the sake of this discussion that there is no way to invoke that code.
Got it.
So you have a, let's say you do solve it, you have a perfect solution for a empty set of problems, and it doesn't make sense. So we need to keep in mind that we need to do it in an effective and efficient fashion. So as I spoke at the beginning, from the experience and from the decision support system that we try to have with automated tools, we guide and support the R&D and the tier one and the OEM in such a fashion that when they use the tool, they gain two very important values: cheaper development process, faster development process, more efficient and effective from one side, and from the second side, a more secure ECU and a more secure vehicle. So this thing is in the benefit of the OEMs and tier ones, and they should not regard cybersecurity as a burden, but rather as a tool which has the financial and commercial benefits by employing it in a orderly fashion.
Gilad, one last question for you. You mentioned that after the pen testing, you got to do another Tara. So with the penetration testing, I have discovered some vulnerabilities, right? So should I call it Tara or a vulnerability and risk analysis? Is it, what would be the proper terminology for this? Should I still call it Tara or a VARA?
Okay, so excellent question. Let me relate to it from a bit different angle, and I will answer the question. I think it's better to look at it this way. So originally, historically, development used to employ a methodology called waterfall, in which you plan your work and work your plan. You have all the requirements day zero, and you implement them along the way. And at the end, after implementation, you test them. The ISO 21434 cybersecurity engineering and Tara employs the V model. Now you could claim, and it's a fair claim, that the V model is more or less in line and with a view of the waterfall model. So there are no iterations in the V model. The iteration in the standard relate to extreme cases where, for example, you found a vulnerability and you found something which is out of the ordinary. However, R&D moved long ago to Agile. Now, if you move to Agile, you have here conflict. The standard does not support iteration, does not support a incremental Tara. And the thing that you're asking, how do I do something which is not exactly in the line of the standard, which is a V model who thinks work your plan your work. So if you find, since R&D moves to Agile and sprints is in the basis, you need to have an adapted implementation of the standard, and hopefully later, sometimes the standard committee will come with an amendment to the standard which will relate to this iteration and Agile way of work. So when you find a vulnerability due to penetration testing, because the IDS found it, because it came published, you need to take it and run it through the Tara, not the full Tara, not the full process, because you will not be effective, but you should take it and focus exactly only on those items which are affected. And then you understand if this new vulnerability has an impact on the vehicle, on the ECU. So yes, you do again a evaluation process, a thinking process in which you estimate the new risks which emerge out of this new...
Due to that vulnerability, the new risk due to the discovered
vulnerability. Yes, and maybe you need to add a new control, you need to update the software, go OTA, or maybe you need to do nothing. But if you do not look at it in the context of the vehicle, you're in the blind and you can get and reach very stupid solutions.
Absolutely. You know, in our process landscape, we actually call that, you know, mini Tara or the Delta Tara. We call it a vulnerability and risk assessment because it's a vulnerability. We call it VARA. But I think it's the same thing that we're referring to. Gilad, it was super exciting hearing you, and thank you so much. I want you guys to follow us and wait for the next episode, because Gilad and I will be continuing this discussion. There will be more episodes of this discussion on ISO 21434 coming up. We're not going to teach you the standard, but we're going to give you insights, an expert insight that Gilad has gathered, I have gathered over years of implementing in real life. So stay tuned, subscribe, follow depending on wherever you were listening or watching, and stay tuned for the next episode. Thank you so much. I'll see you in the next episode. Gilad, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, and it was a pleasure. See you.